My freaking nail polish is running out because I paint them black too much. Hey, it's me! So today, as you can tell from the title, we are adding a new series to this already multifaceted channel. I just want to point out that I'm not changing anything on this channel. I'll still be doing vlogs, I'll still be doing tutorials, and then other things that I do. I've just been kind of wanting to add this thing. So I've been watching a lot of commentary channels lately, and I've also been sharing my opinion on Twitter a lot lately. Well, actually, I think I've been doing that for like years, but anyway. One thing that I did notice is that there's a lack of natives on YouTube sharing their opinions. Well, there's a whole lot of us sharing our opinions on Twitter, so I just thought that I would bring the opinions on over here as well. I don't recall ever seeing any other native commentary on YouTube. If I have missed anybody, if there are native commentary channels, please link them down in the comments. I would love to see them. So basically what I want to do here is, obviously I'm a native person, I'm an indigenous person, I am Ojibwe, and I would like to do videos with my commentary on other different, native topics. I might delve into some non-native stuff, just some basic things that I feel like I want to share my opinion on, but basically, that's what these videos will be. They will be me sharing my opinion and not facts necessarily. Also creating a space on YouTube for you to share your opinion with me as well and with others that might be watching. So with that being said, I don't want this channel to, or these commentary videos, I don't want them to breed negativity. This will not be a call out channel. I won't be calling people out. In fact, if I do provide any kind of receipts in my videos, in the commentary videos, I think I want to just block out all names, whether they say something positive or negative. And that's basically because I just want to provide commentary. I just want to provide my opinion on different topics, my perspective, and maybe you would be interested in hearing that. In addition, I'm not going to be sharing my opinion on everything. These videos will not be super frequent. Like I said, I will be working on other things on my channel, vlogs, tutorials, things like that. So I also ask that you don't expect me to comment on everything. I'm just here trying to have a good time. If you have anything that you would like me to talk about, then by all means suggest it. But don't expect me to 100% have to talk about these things, because I'm a busy lady. Some things I don't have an opinion on, at least a strong one. So anyway, today's topic, I know I listed it in the title, I'm going to. So today's topic, I admit, is kind of a strange one to start off with for the very first topic on my commentary series. But basically, the kind of topics that I want to pick, they might be completely random. I might just think of something and go, you know what, I want to talk about this right here, right now. And other things, they might be relevant in the time and in the moment. And in this case, this topic is relevant in the time and in the moment. So if you are familiar with native Twitter, you might have seen something that was shared pretty widely on there. If you don't have Twitter, then you probably didn't see it. I don't know if it made it on any other kind of platforms. I really have no idea. But basically, I beaded a sex toy. Not any sex toy, but I beaded a butt plug. I know. Pump the brakes, pump the brakes. Again, you watching, you might not be familiar with what happened. So I'm going to give you a rundown of what happened, but I also don't want to just sit here looking at the camera. I need to paint my nails, so I'm going to kind of work on that while explaining to you what happened. So let's get into it. So the title I gave to this topic is Decolonizing Sex, because there were a few different things that took place regarding this infamous beaded butt plug. So basically, if you have no idea why in the effing hell I beaded a butt plug, let me just kind of backtrack a little bit. basically the beaded butt plug. It's just so crazy saying that. It'll never get old, I swear. So basically the beaded butt plug is kind of like this legend that we've all talked about on Native Twitter, at least myself and my mutuals and maybe a few extra people. But we've just kind of been talking about for a really, really long time. Like, I don't even know how long we've been talking about this, but for a long time we've talked about,
I kind of want a beaded butt plug. I want some beaded sex toys. I want beaded lingerie, you know. I want sexual products that are marketed towards me. That would be nice.
but of course, you know, Native produced, none of this appropriated bullshit. So that should already tell you that me beating this butt plug was not like an independent thing. I didn't come up with it on my own. So with that being said, I don't really want to take credit for it, you know, and being like, I'm the one that came up with the beaded butt plug, you know. That's not the case. I didn't do that. There were numerous people that talked about wanting to have it, but the thing is, with as long as we were talking about it, nobody made one. Not a single person. And I think some of that was just concern over doing it in like a sanitary and hygienic way. So the butt plug that I beaded wasn't done in a sanitary or hygienic way. The way I did it was just purely a gag, just to do it and take pictures and put it on the internet and have my mutuals gag at it, right? Well, after that, what happened was it kind of exploded. As of right now, I know it has over 2,000 likes, and that's the most one of my tweets has ever made it. You know, that's not really what matters, you know, how many likes it got or whatever. I'm glad that I made some people laugh, and a lot of my mutuals and other people were really happy that somebody finally beaded the butt plug, because it was such a legend. And the reason that I did it is partially positive, like due to a positive reason, and due to a negative reason. So I'll of course start with the positive, because it's the negative stuff I want to talk about today. Positive reason that I have for me taking the plunge and finally beating this damn thing was it got brought up again. My mutuals started talking about it again, and I wish I could say her name so that you could like go to their Twitter and follow them and like laugh every single day, because they're very funny, they're very genuine, and they're very knowledgeable and tradish as fuck. No, I'm just kidding. Love you. But they were making a lot of funny tweets. They're just like, if you know, legend has it, if you see yada yada, then the beaded butt plug will emerge. Just saying funny stuff. And then I think it was either the day after or later that day or something, I don't know, I was on Twitter and I made one like move of the thumb to scroll, just one, and I had already seen 3 whole people kind of making subtweets or quote tweets about basically addressing somebody who was saying that we shouldn't be butt plugs, because I don't know why. I didn't see the reasons why, but basically one person was like, you know our ancestors had sex, right? Like, how do you think we got here? And another person was, you know, they were just sharing their opinions, right? I was like, what happened here? Are people actually mad that we're talking about a beaded butt plug? Like, what's wrong? So I keep on scrolling, and then that's when I find it. That's when I find the original conversations. Somebody, I'm not going to name them, very cool though, I like them a lot. They were just having a conversation about a hypothetical Native porn industry. They're talking about having porn with Native sex workers and Native producers, and it would be for Native people to watch. Of course there would end up being non-Native people watching the stuff, you know, come on. But there's nothing wrong with having something geared towards natives, right? In addition, they also talked about having like a market attached to it of native-centered lingerie and sex toys, and that's how the beaded butt plug got brought back up, because somebody, once once they've seen, beaded sex toys, they're like, oh yes, like the beaded butt plug that we all need. And within time, a few other Twitter users had voiced their disapproval for this. Some of the shit that they said was very basic, and some of it was wild, and we'll get into that. So, a few had claimed that natives doing sex work and that having a native porn industry would contribute to the fetishization of native women. And this isn't verbatim, but basically they're saying that natives being sex workers and us having a native porn industry would contribute to MMIW. Someone else said that beading sex toys would be disrespectful. They basically said that beadwork is too valuable and sacred to put on sex items. So although there were only a few negative commenters, there were actually many more that agreed and brought some positivity to the idea. And because there were only a few negative commenters, it wasn't exactly like this huge controversy on Twitter where there was just like equal amounts of people against it and equal amounts of people for it. There were more people that eventually chimed in and provided their input on why it's a good idea or why what they said was wrong. And you know what? I was one of them. I made like a 3-tweet thread. I don't know. I think that everything that I mentioned in the thread I'm going to mention in this video. My point is that it did capture some attention and that some really cringy things were said and they need to be addressed. In addition, there were only a few commenters, but there were a lot of likers. In fact, one of those tweets had almost 60 likes on it. That means that 60 people, give or take, agreed with those sentiments. They're just not speaking up about it. There was one negative commenter that even compared native sex work or native porn to pedophilia. I don't think I've seen anybody like those tweets because they tweeted the same thing under different people like 4 or 5 times. I don't even know. But yeah, they likened native porn to pedophilia and said that they were basically related, like the same thing. And I mean, I actually had this account blocked already, so that makes total sense. But again, going back to the fact that there was only a few negative commenters, but at least 60 people liking these sentiments and agreeing with it, I also know that there are plenty of people outside of Twitter that would agree as well. I know that there is a problem with victim and slut shaming and sex negativity in our communities, regardless of the fact that there was overwhelming support on Native Twitter for sex positivity. Sex negativity is definitely more prominent in our communities than sex positivity is. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with my thoughts on the comments regarding sex work being related to MMIW. You, if you're watching, if you are a non-native person or you've never heard of MMIW, basically MMIW is missing and murdered Indigenous women. It is an epidemic. There are more missing and murdered Indigenous women than any other racial group. We are murdered more often. We go missing and nobody explores our cases. We face more instances of domestic violence, and the majority of these cases are perpetrated by white men. Also, these men often get off unscathed. They either get very short sentences, or they get slaps on the wrist, or they don't get explored at all. There are thousands upon thousands of cases of missing or murdered Indigenous women that have just gone cold because they're not being investigated, or they're being closed without a proper investigation. So now that you kind of have an idea of what MMIW is, you know that it's a huge problem and it's a very sensitive problem, and that somebody out on the internet said that a native being a sex worker contributes to that. So that's a pretty awful thing to say, and honestly, I I believe that people can grow and that they should be allotted the opportunity to grow. So I genuinely hope that these people that said that, I genuinely hope that they can learn and grow and realize what they said and how false the statement they made is. So this is a problem because it's victim blaming. Especially if it ends up being a Native sex worker that is harmed. You know that they're just going to victim blame and say that they shouldn't have been doing that anyway. But it's also victim blaming for victims who weren't sex workers, because basically they're saying that by being a Native sex worker and by making Native porn, that these perpetrators might be more emboldened to commit these acts because they're going to hire Native sex workers or view Native porn and then suddenly feel like they have more of a fetish for Native women, therefore they want to hurt them. So that's kind of like, so it's basically like saying that women as a collective group, it's our fault that we're being hurt because some of us are sex workers. And it's our fault basically for emboldening perpetrators. In addition to the victim blaming, it's also being apologetic to rapists and murderers. Not only is it saying that, you woman, this is your fault, that would be victim blaming. And it's also saying, like, look, they dehumanized themselves, so it's not your fault that you dehumanized them too. And shifting the blame to sex workers just, for many reasons, doesn't make sense to me. But in this case, it just doesn't make sense to me because MMIW has existed long before we had this kind of access to Native sex workers. You know what I mean? It's been going on for hundreds of years. To be able to locate a Native sex worker on, say, Twitter, and then pay them and get access to their OnlyFans, this is a relatively new thing. Even though sex workers have existed for a long time, this kind of access to sex workers hasn't. And Native porn doesn't even really exist yet. There might be a few videos out there here and there, a few Native sex workers that are doing actual porn, but when we ratio Native porn to porn as a whole, it's the last second on the clock. It's just a smidgen of the industry as a whole. So it doesn't really make sense to me that you can say that this would contribute to that when it already exists. MMIW already exists, and these things in the grand scheme kind of don't, you know what I mean? How can you say that the MMIW is caused by something that hasn't really taken off yet or even happened yet? But, I mean, why do sex workers do what they do? Why is there porn? Usually it's to create a fantasy for viewers, right? I think that we can all agree on the fact that sex workers, whether they are doing work in person or they're just sharing, pictures online, or if they're doing actual adult film, their main shtick is to provide a fantasy and to be sexy. I don't think that perpetrators of MMIW think that we're sexy. I don't think that they're doing this and hurting all of us because they think that we're sexy. They're hurting us because it makes them feel powerful, and they're hurting us to dehumanize us. They are convinced that we deserve it. One user on Twitter actually said that, well, some natives are too contemporary. But shame about sex and sex-related topics is colonial. Shame about sex and sex-related topics is contemporary. So when you're saying some natives are contemporary, you're the natives. It isn't us. It isn't the sex-positive ones. It's y'all saying that we should be ashamed for wanting a beaded butt plug. This is much like shame for showing breasts, like breastfeeding. We've inherited these ideas about shaming that our communities didn't initially have. So saying that boarding schools brainwashed and assimilated our parents, and it has led to other issues in our communities, but in the same breath, not admit that sex negativity is one of them issues, I find a problem with that. Sex negativity is definitely one of them issues that arose due to assimilation, due to removal. Sex positivity is one of our beliefs that has been lost. You can't say that so many of our beliefs have been lost, so many of our ways, but then not acknowledge the fact that sex positivity was one of them. I mean, for one, we have ribbon skirts now, right? Ribbon skirts aren't traditional. Ribbon skirts are actually a relatively new garment, and they're kind of like a pan-indigenous garment. But there are still rules around them. So some people say that ribbon skirts should never be above the ankles, and that we should never show any kind of leg at powwows. You mean to tell me that our traditional grandmothers, they didn't show leg back in the day? I don't know. I don't know for sure. Maybe they did have rules about showing leg back in the day, but considering we were hard at work and sex positive, I can't guarantee that we had those rules. And you know what isn't traditional is beadwork. Not until we traded with Europeans and different tribes, we used different mediums for decorating our objects and our garments. I would say for the Ojibwe, the medium we have used that's similar to beadwork would be quill work. You know, we dyed porcupine quills and applied them to our garments and our objects, you know, baskets and stuff, and we made a lot of really pretty things with them. I'm not totally sure, you know, if that is a completely important fact to mention, the fact that beadwork in itself isn't actually traditional. So when we have these conversations about, well, beading sex toys is a disrespect, it isn't traditional, you know, beadwork itself isn't traditional either. Don't ever think it is lost on me that different tribes have different teachings and do different things. You know, we are not one monolithic entity. You know, we have all inhabited North America, yes, but we're all just so different. And I think that I can safely say that we have similar ideas around how to conduct beadwork. You know, having positive intentions or thoughts, being mindfulness of our work. Sorry, I'm like focusing. Incorporating colors and clans and whatever kind of identifying markers to our work. This kind of protocol, it isn't always the case. Sometimes we are just doing things for pretty aesthetics or pretty patterns or pretty colors. In addition, we also, nowadays, we also buy beadwork from strangers who we have no idea if they followed any of this protocol that we consider so important. And I'm not saying that this protocol isn't important, I'm just saying that we can't say that beading sex toys is bad because of the lack of protocol, but then go on and buy earrings online without knowing if the protocol is followed. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, in addition to buying beadwork from strangers, you know, whether you're at the powwow or whether you're online, is the actual act of exchanging money, of participating in capitalism. That's not traditional either. That is a very contemporary thing. And, you know, we do beadwork on all kinds of other items that are not traditional. And I think that a really good item that is frequently beaded nowadays to bring up would be pop sockets. There are beaded pop sockets everywhere. You know, they're being sold online, they're being sold at the powwow, they're being commissioned. But pop sockets obviously are not a traditional item. I mean, unless you know something I don't know. The ancestors out there with their iPhones. But not only that, I think if we are going to demonize certain pieces of beadwork based on what they're applied to, in this case we're demonizing beadwork that's being applied to sex toys, I think then by that logic, technically we should be demonizing pop sockets as well, based on what they're applied to. They're being applied to cellular phones that we acquire through capitalism and consumerism. And these phones are made by corporations, capitalist corporations, that actually go and damage the earth digging for some mineral or metal or something. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's some kind of mineral or metal that is required for an iPhone to work. It won't work without it. And then new phones come out all the time, and the phones that we currently have, companies stop updating them. They age out. Suddenly software isn't compatible with older phones, and we have to get new ones. Well, what happens to those older phones? Some people recycle them. There's people like me who just hold on to them. You know, I have an iPhone 3 in a drawer somewhere in this house just because I can't throw it away. It's kind of like holding a little piece of history, to be honest. But basically, that's just another way of harming the earth, is they're polluting the earth by sitting in landfills, or they're also polluting the earth due to their carbon footprint, you know, being shipped around the world, being pieced together in different areas, because I'm pretty sure that's how iPhones are put together. One piece is put together in this country, and then it gets shipped to another country, and they add another piece there, and so on. So basically, the pop socket is associated with an item that has a really bad carbon footprint and really does go against a lot of the things that we believe. I'm not saying throw your phones out. I am recording on an iPhone 8 right now. I'm looking at you. I'm talking to you through an iPhone 8. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think we need to kind of reflect on how we think of things and why we're thinking of them a certain way. This thing right here is roughly the same size as a pop socket. In fact, if I put a little bit of edging on this and I put it on an actual pop socket and then stick it to my phone, it's a pop socket, and it's, you know, it's valued. It's probably, you know, people are going to be like, well, that's super cute, and it's completely okay. But this was put on a butt plug, and some people had a problem with that. So since this is so similar to a pop socket, because it's being applied to a sex toy instead of a phone, suddenly it's disrespectful. I don't think it's your value in beadwork. I think you just find sex shameful, and you might need to be honest with yourself about that. Many cultures around the world have embellished sexual objects. In fact, a lot of these objects have ended up in museums. Since then, much of the world has also been colonized. Do you see the correlation here? I'm not saying that natives shouldn't be surprised by this and that they shouldn't, you know, be shocked when they see a beaded butt plug, because I don't think that everybody has seen our conversations about the beaded butt plug. I had a lot of quote tweets that were like, why? Why did you do this? They didn't have a problem with it, but they still were confused, like, why did I bead a butt plug of all things? And it's just because we've been talking about it. So obviously I don't think that everybody has seen those conversations, but I don't think that everybody has seen these conversations at all, or have even fathomed the idea of a sex toy being beaded with the same patterns that we use in earrings and, you know, on pop sockets and other things. And I'm not saying that I thought that all natives would have agreed with it either. I know that there's a huge issue in our communities with sex negativity, and there's numerous other issues as well, and we're still working through decolonization. It's going to take a long time, and it's going to be difficult, and I think that the way that we're going to get through this is by having these discussions and talking about this stuff. I believe that talking about this stuff brings real change. I didn't always believe that, but I do now. I've seen it, and it's invoked change in myself, having discussions and talking about things, whether they're in person or on the internet, just talking about this stuff. And you know, part of decolonization is us declaring that we are still here, we don't want to assimilate, you've tried all this shit, a lot of it has worked, you know, like the boarding school shit, it worked, but it's not going to work anymore, and we're going to decolonize. The fact that we're shouting from the rooftops, we are still here, I think we need to acknowledge the very reason we are still here. And it's the sheer fact that our ancestors, they like to get it on. The ideas of sex had to be positive because, for one, the cycle of life is sacred, and for another, wigwams were small as hell, dude. I mean, come on. So you can't really call beaded sex toys a disrespect to your ancestors when, for one, they were all up in the sex themselves, and for another, they considered sex sacred. Probably more sacred than beadwork, to be honest. On the other hand, one could say that the importance of beadwork lies on the importance of the garment that the beadwork itself is being applied to. You know what I mean? So like something like a pop socket, obviously it's just something pretty that we just stick in our phones, and it's pretty and it makes us feel good, it makes us look good, right? Applying beadwork on that isn't necessarily as important as applying beadwork to like a ceremonial regalia. Essentially, both acts are relatively the same. You know, we're doing beadwork, we're applying the beadwork to items, but the importance of the item is far different. A beaded pop socket isn't nearly as important as beadwork on ceremonial regalia, and I think that we can all agree to that. I don't know any Ojibwe traditional teachings about sex. All I know is what has been passed down by parents who suffered removal and assimilation. I would never talk back to them like this in real life, but I still want to have these discussions with other people from my generation, because we have to remember our job as the 7th generation, and that is to basically break through the colonizer mold and bring back our old ways, the old ways that we can anyway, and then develop new ways that reflect our old teachings and reflect our old ways of thinking, while adapting these new ways to the way that the world works in our current environments. I think that bringing back old ways involves bringing back sex positivity. I think all of this comes down to recognizing how assimilation has led to shame around sex. You know, much like the installment of patriarchy and other colonial constructs that are damaging. I think we need to be mindful of our words and how so many different tropes can be derived from them. So I don't wish anybody any harm or negativity, even the people that said some shit, I guess, because some of the things that they said were actually awful. And I genuinely hope that they learn and grow, and I hope that they can join us and help us break down these colonial constructs that we're stuck with, and I hope they can help us decolonize sex. So let me know what you have to say. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, you know, if you have any points that you think I might have missed. If you disagree and you want to leave points down in the comments, you know, feel free, go ahead. I'm probably not going to change my mind though, just letting you know right now. Again, I just want to reiterate here that I don't want any hate or negativity being sent anybody's way after watching this video. These videos are just meant for me to share my opinion only. I'm not sharing them as fact. I just want to talk about things, and let me know of any other topics you want to hear about. I just might talk about them. So again, this will be kind of a series that I want to add to my channel, in addition to what I've already been doing. I talk so much shit on Twitter already, I might as well talk some shit on here too. And I've already done a few commentary videos. I did the Cody Rants one, the one about Native American costumes, and then I did one about Dustin Daly doing the white sage. That was interesting. But with all three of those, I had help from other people. They were all like collaborative projects. And this one right here, I'm going to be doing all on my own for now. But in the future, I want you to expect some collaborations. I want to get some other natives in on these topics, just in other ways besides like Twitter threads, because we've read all kinds of Twitter threads. It's been a medium for a while. I think I want to branch out to other mediums, collaborate with other natives who like talking shit, and whatever medium they want to use to talk their shit, you know, I'll promote it here and we will answer these questions together. So, yes, now that I've talked your ear off, my nails are all done. I usually do some like sparkles or whatever, but I just went all black this time because I don't know. It's kind of perfect that I talked just long enough to do my nails. Anyway, I hope you liked that. I hope that was helpful or entertaining or whatever you want it to be. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.